They're a devout Catholic family. So one of the most common reasons someone might deny evolution is due to religious beliefs. This is what you would call a creationist, which is a person who believes that the universe and all living organisms originate from divine creation. Don't get the wrong idea here, not all religious people deny evolution. A lot of major religions encourage learning about it and view it as part of God's plan. Also, this is off topic, but this girl and her parents literally spawn into the South Park universe for this one episode and are never seen again. She appears to be wearing the same jacket as Heidi and has the same hairstyle as Sally Turner. I'm really curious about the thought process behind this and why they decided to make this hybrid character for one episode instead of just using an already existing one. Feel free to comment your conspiracy theories on that. Principal Victoria lets Garrison know that she brought in a replacement teacher to give the classroom a proper lesson on evolution. And who better than Richard Dawkins himself? I mentioned Dawkins in the intro, but aside from writing The God Delusion, who is he? Well, he's a lot of things. Evolutionary biologist, zoologist, debater, arguably the most well-known atheist in the world, and obviously an author. He's also responsible for coining the word meme. That's not a joke, by the way. Look it up. Despite all of this, his most impressive talent has to be rage baiting on Twitter. Okay, but in all seriousness, he's a polarizing figure. Here's what Matt and Trey had to say about his book.
Richard Dawkins is obviously a brilliant man, but some of his book was frustrating to read because you'd read something so smart and then to me something so like, what? You know, you read something that was just so like, how could you say this?
Dawkins' book to me sounded exactly like that kid when you were like in high school, that like 15-year-old that was running around going, "Don't be stupid, God," you know, and it was just like, yeah, we know.
While neither of them are religious themselves, they appear to have little tolerance for, lack of a better word here, anti-religious preaching. Matt Stone even said this was something that annoyed him all the way back in 2002.
All the parents are sitting around and they've turned into atheists, which to me are the most annoying kind of, you know, when they start spouting their anti-religious stuff. And we actually do the thing where they're spouting their, yeah, I don't even need religion, and they're pooping out their mouth at the same time.
That should give you a pretty clear understanding of their opinion on Richard Dawkins. Let's get back to what this episode is really about. Cartman getting his Nintendo Wii. He is in pure agony. He can't sleep, and he does whatever he can to try and pass the time. Minutes start to feel like hours for him. He shows up to the bus stop the next day and says that he's come up with an idea to make time go by faster.
If I freeze myself, then in 3 weeks, when Nintendo Wii comes out, you guys can unfreeze me. Wait instantaneously.
The boys refuse to help him because, well, you know, he'll probably die. After failing to freeze himself, he realizes he needs to recruit some help. Who better than his most reliable friend?
You're gonna help me freeze myself.
Oh, hey!
If Butters isn't at least a top 3 character for you, you're a psychopath. The plan is simple. Eric will freeze himself and Butters will come back for him right before the Wii releases.
Eric, are you sure this is a good idea?
No, it's not a good idea. It's an awesome idea.
Back in the classroom, Garrison is being forced to watch Dawkins teach evolution. Garrison starts getting heated and asks,
"What about the fact that by believing this crap, you're gonna go to hell? Doesn't that bother you a little?"
Actually, no, because I'm an atheist.
I feel like a massive part of religion is looking for answers of an afterlife. For atheism, it's pretty simple. When you die, you die. I know, mind-blowing stuff. Your consciousness ceases to exist. I guess the simplest way to explain it, death is like how it was before you were born. Of course, nobody can prove that one way or another, but this is what most atheists believe. Upon learning that he's an atheist, Garrison starts crashing out possibly harder than we've ever seen.
And if I'm a monkey, then I might as well act like a monkey, huh?
Then proceeds to throw feces at Mr. Dawkins. This outburst causes Principal Victoria to pull Garrison from the classroom. Well, it would have, but we have a plot twist. Dawkins actually defends Garrison. Even though he has excrement on his face still, it turns out he found the entire thing very passionate. So much so that he asks Garrison out on a date. Yeah, Matt and Trey really didn't like his book. And of course, Garrison accepts the date. Garrison is one of the most insane characters in all of television. Bigoted, psychotic, for the most part, just a terrible human being. But something I've noticed is that Garrison is a hopeless romantic. This is a funny little detail throughout the show that a lot of people don't pick up on. Their date seems to be going pretty well when suddenly Dawkins says that he wishes Garrison was an atheist. Garrison starts backing off on the hardcore religious stance, but mentions that God can't be disproven. And Dawkins replies by saying,
Well, what if I told you there was a flying spaghetti monster? Would you believe it simply because it can't be disproven?
what if I told you that the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster is a real thing? In 2005, a college student was annoyed with Kansas State's Board of Education deciding to allow teaching intelligent design. This student went on to create a new religious movement called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. This new religion satirized creationism, and it gained a lot of traction on the mid-2000s internet. You might think this was something that was funny and just died off a year later, but I assure you, this religion has actual followers. And you know they're a legit church because they profit off of their members. Garrison starts completely folding and decides to become a full-blown atheist. You know, despite being religious and making a massive deal about evolution just hours before this, Garrison invites him over for dessert, which turns into,
Yeah, pound my monkey hole, Richard. Yeah, I'm a monkey, all right.
we get an update on Cartman, which is actually a reference to The Shining. Not as good as Randy's from the Blockbuster episode, but this one came first. Cartman then gets swept into an avalanche, ensuring that Butters, or no one else for that matter, will be able to find him. We also learn that Eric's plan actually worked. This part is actually a reference to the late 70s sci-fi show called Buck Rogers. Most of us were not even a sperm cell yet, but Trey Parker really loved this show growing up.
And we had this Buck Rogers weekend. It's pretty great.
I used to love Buck Rogers. Me and my dad would watch Buck Rogers every week.
Cartman gets unfrozen by people of the future, and he's told that he has been frozen for over 500 years.
Butters, you black asshole!
Eric is concerned with one thing only, the Nintendo Wii. The future people try to make him understand that everybody he knows has been dead for over 500 years.
I don't care. Is there a Nintendo Wii?
His worst nightmare then comes true. He's told there's no such thing as the Wii or video games in the future. Meanwhile, Butters gets asked by his mom and some cops if he has seen Cartman in the last few days. He lies to them and says he hasn't seen him, which is pretty out of character for our sweet boy. He asks General Desiree what would happen if someone freezes themselves.
Guy?
In a panic, they run to go and try and find Eric, but they realize there's no...
Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today we're going to be discussing the age-old question of how on earth Harry's parents amassed such an incredible amount of wealth. How is it that Harry's vault was absolutely bursting at the seams with galleons when the vaults of an entire family, the Weasleys, had but just one single galleon? We're also going to be looking at why Rowling made the decision to make Harry as wealthy as he was. When the Philosopher's Stone was first released, we got our first look into the contents of Harry's vault, Vault 687, when Hagrid escorts him to Gringotts. Griphook unlocked the door, a lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold rings, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze knuts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. And from the first time I read that passage, I became fascinated with Harry's vault. How did he get it? How much was there? And what did these immense stacks of gold look like? Fortunately, this scene was brought to life on screen in the release of the Philosopher's Stone in 2001, and it allowed us to finally witness, with our own eyes, exactly what Harry would have seen when he first stepped foot in Vault 687. I'd also like to point out that this scene was preceded by Harry asking, "But Hagrid, how am I to pay for all this? I haven't any money." Oh, Harry. So again I ask, where on earth did Harry's parents, who were just 21 years old when they died, get all this gold to leave for Harry? There are two components to this answer. The first involves the canon explanation for the gold, with in-depth information on where it came from, and the second involves a theory of mine that may account for why these existing stacks of gold were made even larger after the deaths of Harry's parents. Let me first dive into the former. The first thing that needs to be established is that the vast wealth came almost entirely from James's side of the family. Lily Evans was a Muggle-born, and there's no evidence to support that her family had any kind of generational wealth. Bearing that in mind, who was at the start of the Potter fortune? Well, according to an article on Pottermore, it all started with a wizard by the name of Linford Stinchcombe, aka Potterer, the founding patriarch of the Potter family. The wizarding family of Potters descends from the 12th century wizard Linford of Stinchcombe, a locally well-beloved and eccentric man whose nickname, the Potterer, became corrupted in time to Potter. Linford was a vague and absent-minded fellow whose mother neighbours often called him his medicinal services. None of them realised that Linford's wonderful cures for pox and age were magical. They all thought him a harmless and lovable old chap, pottering about in his garden with all his fine plants. His reputation as a well-known eccentric served Linford well, for behind closed doors he was able to continue the series of experiments that laid the foundation of the Potter family's fortune. Historians credit Linford as the originator of a number of remedies that evolved into potions still used to this day, including Skelligro and Pepper Potion. His sales of such cures to fellow witches and wizards enabled him to leave a significant pile of gold to each of his 7 children upon his death. If you recognize Skelligro, well, that's because it's still used to this day, notably on Harry in the Chamber of Secrets. The function of Skelligro is to heal bones, capable of both repairing broken bones and growing back bones that are missing. It is described as a dreadful tasting potion and Harry once remarked that using it felt like having large splinters lodged in his arm. The other potion created by Linford, the pepper potion, is a cure for the common cold, helping to warm the drinker up. The potion was notably used in the Surge in February 1995 during the Triumphs tournament, and it was used on the hostages and the champions after they came out of the Great Lake. The only known side effect is that it causes steam to come out of the drinker's ears for hours on end. But Linford wasn't the only one in the family to become successful. He just kicked things off. The Potters continued to marry their neighbours, occasionally muggles, and to live in the west of England for several generations, each one adding to the family coffers by their hard work and, it must be said, by the quiet brand of ingenuity that characterised their forebear, Linford. Occasionally, a Potter made it all the way to London, and a member of the family has twice sat on the Wizengamot. Ralston Potter, who was a member from 1612 to 1652, and who was a great supporter of the Statute of Secrecy, as opposed to declaring war on the Muggles, as more militant members wished to do, and Henry Potter, Harry to his intimates. And while many of the Potters were able to achieve success in their respective careers, slowly growing the family fortune, it wasn't until Fleamont Potter came about that fuel really started to get added to the fire. Fleamont was the son of Henry, and father to, you guessed it, James Potter. This of course also means that Fleamont was Harry's grandfather. Fleamont may have never met Harry, but he did live long enough to make and leave him enough gold for a lifetime. You see, Fleamont was able to take the family fortune and quadruple it by creating the family's most famous potion to date, Sleepy's hair potion. The potion was a hair potion, scalp treatment, marketed with the following slogan: 2 drops tame even the most bothersome barnet. It was essentially used for taming unruly hair, sleekly and fashionably styling it. The potion was notably used by Hermione when she went to the Yule Ball with Victor Crumb. In short, the immense wealth of the Potters can be attributed to centuries of sales from multiple successful and extremely prevalent potions. Given the long-standing generational wealth of the Potters, it's certainly not surprising that Harry was left with an absolute boatload of cash. But with that explanation on the table, I have a theory for how these mounds of gold may have grown even further after the deaths of Harry's parents. When Voldemort died and Harry survived, he was praised by the entire wizarding world for, somehow, taking out the Dark Lord and relieving the wizarding community of his tyranny. It was also common knowledge that Harry's parents had died in the process. I'm of the impression that thousands of witches and wizards, feeling empathy for the young boy who had lost his parents, banded together to donate an additional gold ring. The exact fortune of the Potters would have been unclear to the wizarding world as a whole, so from the outside perspective, it may have looked as if the newborn child had now left with nothing, no parents, no gold. It stands to reason that the general wizarding population, overjoyed with Voldemort's defeat, would have tried to thank Harry in some way. Maybe they couldn't bring back his parents, but with enough contributors, they could certainly make sure that he was financially worry-free. We also have to consider royalties. If Harry's ancestors created famous and popular potions that were still sold during his lifetime, then it stands to reason that he would be entitled to proceeds from the sales of said potions. Furthermore, given the prevalence of these potions, I'd be willing to bet that it'd add up quite quickly. With the question of how Harry obtained gold out of the way, the next thing I want to address is why. Why on earth did Rowling decide to make Harry's wealth a prominent plot point? Why did she make him rich? As it turns out, she's actually answered this very question in an interview. Where does Harry get his money? He always seems to have some. Does he have a bank account? There isn't. Where's his money? Well, as you know, Harry's bank account is Gringotts. His money came from inheritance from his father. But I think, on a deeper level, Harry's money never really is that important in the books, except that he can afford his uniform, and so on. On the other hand, I think I really gave him a fortune because I was so broke when I wrote the first book, and it was wishful thinking that I would not have to worry about such things. Rowling wrote Harry as rich because, in the world that she lived in, she had